Ever since my car accident, I've lived with a prosthetic hip, a constant reminder of my fragility. But never did I imagine that Karen Cop will mistake my prosthetic hip for a bomb and will want me arrested. The day I met Karen, a cop with a penchant for drama, my mundane trip to New York turned into a harrowing tale of suspicion and chaos, all because of my medical condition. Here's how it all went down. Airports for me were always bustling hubs of excitement, leading to new destinations or old memories. But on that fateful day, the airport transformed into a theater of absurdity, with me, an ordinary guy with a prosthetic hip, and a cop named Karen as the antagonist. This wasn't just any trip. It was supposed to be a dream journey to New York, a place I'd longed to visit since childhood. The airport was alive with the symphony of travel, the rolling of suitcases, the distant chatter of passengers, and the occasional laughter of children. Approaching the security checkpoint, I prepared myself for the routine inconvenience caused by my prosthetic hip. The metal detector's beep was as expected, but what followed was anything but. Karen, the security officer, with a demeanor as rigid as her uniform, reacted dramatically to the beep. "BP has a bomb!" she exclaimed, her voice echoing through the terminal. Stunned, I managed to utter, "It's my prosthetic hip!" But my words were lost in the growing panic around us. Karen's face was a mask of determination as she radioed for backup. "We have a situation here. Possible bomb threat," she declared, her eyes never leaving me. The crowd's curiosity turned into concern, and I felt their gazes piercing through me, branding me as a threat. The situation spiraled rapidly. Security personnel encircled me, their expressions stern and unyielding. Karen stood out among them, directing the scene with a mix of fear and authority. "You're not going anywhere," she said to me, her voice cold and accusing. Desperate to clear the misunderstanding, I pleaded, "Please, just check my medical records or call my doctor. It's a prosthetic hip, nothing more." But Karen seemed immune to reason, fueled by a misplaced sense of duty and suspicion. The crowd around us had grown, some passengers whispering among themselves, others blatantly recording the incident. I felt like an unwilling actor on a stage, my dignity stripped away under the public's gaze. Relief came in the form of a supervisor, a beacon of reason in the midst of chaos. He listened to my side, examined my medical bracelet, and confirmed my story with a quick call. The tension began to ebb away, but Karen stood firm in her conviction. "She's making it up. We can't let her go," Karen argued, her voice laced with frustration and disbelief. The supervisor, however, stood his ground, apologizing to me for the ordeal and instructing my release. Gathering my belongings, I could feel Karen's eyes burning into my back. "You were lucky this time," she said, a hint of warning in her tone. As I walked away from the checkpoint, a mix of emotions churned inside me. Relief at being freed, anger at the unjust treatment, and a lingering sense of disbelief. Karen's stubbornness and quick judgment had not only caused me to miss my flight, but had also left a deep scar on my perception of security procedures. Exiting the airport, I overheard Karen justifying her actions to a colleague. "I did what was necessary. Better safe than sorry," she stated, her voice devoid of doubt or remorse. It was a chilling reminder of the power vested in individuals like her, often exercised without accountability. That day, my simple journey turned into a profound lesson about the dangers of prejudice and the abuse of authority. Karen, with her unwarranted suspicion and stubbornness, had shown how quickly fear and ignorance could escalate a harmless situation into a full-blown crisis. The incident was more than a misunderstanding. It was a stark reflection of a society where fear often trumps understanding, and where individuals like Karen, driven by their biases, can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, leaving lasting impacts on those caught in their wake. Wow, just finished this wild story about a guy with a prosthetic hip being mistaken for a bomb threat at the airport. All thanks to Officer Karen's over-the-top antics. Can you believe it? The tension and misunderstanding in this one were off the charts. Makes you think twice about what can happen when assumptions go unchecked. 3 years ago, my sister Leah's world turned upside down, and so did mine, but not in the way anyone expected. As I uncover a web of lies and betrayal, our family's foundation is shaken to its core. Here's how it all went down. Not great at explaining things, so bear with me, I guess. So, about 3 years ago, my older sister Leah, fake name, who was 17 at the time, underwent a drastic change in her personality overnight. She went from being a sweet and reliable big sister to being snappy and closed off. She stopped doing chores, would get an attitude if reminded, and spent all day in her room. I was 12 at the time, so I couldn't understand why she was acting like that. My brother, who was 21 and busy with school, was no longer living with us. Initially, my parents attributed her behavior to teenage girl hormones, which was partially true. However, one night she came out of her room crying and told us that she is bisexual. My parents and my brother, being supportive as they are, my brother is gay, were accepting of her revelation. At the time, I wasn't well informed about this topic, but my parents explained it to me and why it was significant to her. I just responded with a casual, "Cool, good for you, sis." After that, her behavior improved, and she started being nice to us again. However, she didn't spend as much time with me, which is understandable because what teenage girl wants to hang out with her little sister, right? Fast forward 3 years and I thought my sister and I were close again, or at least that's what I believed. My parents and I noticed that her friends began acting strangely towards us. They wouldn't talk to us when they came over, if they even bothered to come, and occasionally made snarky remarks or rolled their eyes when we spoke. It was weird, but since it only happened when they were around, we brushed it off, thinking, whatever, they don't have to like us. However, just an hour ago, I found out the reason behind their behavior. I was peacefully binge-watching an anime when my phone started buzzing non-stop. When I checked, I realized I had been added to a group chat on Instagram by my sister's friends. In this group chat, they were basically bashing me and calling me a horrible person. They labeled me as homophobic, a spoiled brat, a terrible sister, the golden child, and even accused me of being a homewrecker. They insisted that I needed to apologize to my sister for supposedly abusing her. Naturally, I am completely confused. When I expressed my confusion to them, they initially told me to stop acting ignorant and innocent. Eventually, they realized that I genuinely had no idea what they were talking about. That's when they sent me a bunch of screenshots of conversations between them and my sister. To sum things up, my sister has been spreading a very wild story about her life and how we treat her to her friends. She claims that our parents are extremely homophobic and will kick her out at 18 because of her sexuality. She believes that when she came out, I quickly became the favorite child and started treating her poorly for fun. She alleges that I hit her, break her things, verbally abuse her, and use homophobic slurs against her. She also claims that our parents not only allow this behavior, but encourage it. According to her, she is forced to do all of the chores and cooking in the house, including cleaning my room, even though she doesn't know how to cook. She has also lied about other things, such as having autism and me making fun of her for it, which is not true because I'm the one with autism. There is much more to this, as the screenshots go back 2 years, so she's been telling her friends these things for almost 3 years. I asked her friends why it took them so long to confront me, and they explained that she begged them not to because it would make things worse for her. Her plan was to cut off contact with us once she turns 18. However, they couldn't hold back this time because the most recent thing she told them was that I found out about the guy she talks to, and immediately started texting him, causing him to stop talking to her. It's ironic that this was the final straw for them, not the alleged abuse. I tried to debunk as much as I could by sending them pictures from Pride festivals we attended together, pictures of us, we take a lot together, and pictures of my brother with his boyfriend. They were angry, but I asked them not to take any action until I figure out how to deal with it because apparently my sister is seen as the abused black sheep of the family, and they agreed. The conversation about me stealing the boy she likes happened a few hours ago. I checked on my sister, and she was peacefully sleeping, unaware of the group chat. As for me, I'm experiencing a mix of emotions about this, shocked, hurt, and angry. It feels like a huge betrayal. I don't know how to handle this or why she is doing it. Is it for attention? I stayed up most of the night because I was reading your comments and couldn't sleep much. I only got about 2 hours of sleep. But I followed the advice you all gave me and took screenshots of everything, including the messages from the last night's group chat. Since my dad gets home earlier than my mom and my sister has a part-time job, I spoke to my dad first. Obviously, he was furious, shocked, and hurt. It was difficult to witness because I love my dad. He also apologized a lot since I was the one who had to find out and talk to him about it. Anyway, when my mom got home, my dad wanted to talk to her alone, so I went to my room. Here comes the unexpected part. I overheard my parents arguing a lot, and I'll spare you the details, but I later found out that my mom knew about Leah's lies. She found out about it 5 months ago and didn't tell my dad. I don't know the specifics, but apparently she made my sister promise not to do it anymore and just trusted that she wouldn't. Haha, it's safe to say that my dad was really angry. Leah arrived home and the situation escalated. There was more screaming, particularly from Leah. It was difficult not to hear as I was inside the house. My dad informed me that Leah was punching and scratching her legs, threatening to kill herself. She was also screaming that she would harm me. This was the first time I had ever heard my sister scream like that, so it was quite frightening. My dad was already angry with my mom for going behind his back and keeping him out of something that involves his child. My mom defended herself by saying that she was just trying to protect Leah and that she is just a kid. However, my dad is smart enough to recognize that Leah is clearly not mentally well and insisted that she needed to be put in a mental health facility. Many of you had expressed the same opinion. From what I heard and what my dad told me, my mom pleaded with him not to, but my dad was already angry about what she did. He threatened to leave her if she didn't comply. There was more arguing, but eventually they took her to the hospital. As a result, I haven't seen her. Currently, my dad and I are staying with my paternal grandparents. He is not speaking to my mom at the moment, but he did warn her that if she tries to take Leah out, it will end their marriage. I also spoke to my brother, and he was obviously hurt but concerned for our sister, so there's that. My dad and I have had a lot of good talks. He apologized to me for everything that's been going on, but it's not his fault, so there's nothing to forgive. If anything, I feel worse about the situation. But my dad and I are doing well. I'm not exactly sure where my parents' relationship stands right now, but my dad told me not to worry about adult stuff and to just focus on being a kid and going to school. So that's what I'm going to try and do. But that's basically everything for now. I will update if anything else happens. The revelation of Leah's deceit was not just a simple case of teenage rebellion, it exposed deeper issues that had been simmering beneath the surface of our family life. This experience has been a stark reminder of the fragility of trust and the intricate dynamics of family relationships. It's a painful lesson in understanding and empathy, one that underscores the importance of open communication and mental health awareness. As a seasoned auto claims adjuster, I've navigated through countless accident claims, but nothing prepared me for the storm that hit when a customer's late-night collision with a mysterious object spiraled into a relentless battle of wills. Caught in a web of anger, accusations, and unyielding demands, I faced a claimant whose hostility threatened to breach the boundaries of professional decorum and personal peace. Here's how it all went down. I work as a claims adjuster for auto accidents. A customer filed a claim after hours, and I followed up with him first thing this morning. I had no information on the vehicle other than what he reported, so I informed him that there was a possibility of it being a total loss. However, he immediately became angry and insisted that he didn't want his car to be a total loss. He also refused to have it moved to another location for an in-person inspection. Despite his hostility, I tried to discuss an alternative with him. However, he started cursing and berating me, constantly interrupting me, and demanding that I just pay the claim. I explained that, according to his insurance agreement, we needed to inspect the vehicle before making any payment. This was necessary to determine if it was a total loss or repairable. Still, he continued to be difficult, so I informed him that I would disconnect the call and speak to him again when he had calmed down. After hanging up and going into a meeting, he proceeded to call our customer service line repeatedly. He harassed 4 women and refused to end the calls until I accepted his call. I explained that I was in a meeting and couldn't speak with him for at least another 30 minutes. However, he continued to stay on the line with them for a few more minutes before hanging up and calling customer service again. Finally, I had the chance to call him back and suggested that we work with his shop to have them submit photos for a preliminary check. This would help us determine if the car was a total loss or not. He claimed to have sent me photos the night before, but there were no attachments in the emails he sent. I explained that we needed specific photos for an accurate review and suggested that he call the shop to request them, which was what I had initially told him. He then demanded my cell phone number, stating that he wanted to reach me over the weekend. I informed him that I didn't have a work cell phone and wouldn't provide him with my personal number. He continued to demand it several times and insisted on speaking with my supervisor. I told him that she was aware of the situation and would contact him when she could. However, I couldn't give him her contact information. He insisted that I make her call him immediately, but I reminded him that I couldn't dictate her schedule. He tried to keep me on the phone until his demands were met, but I informed him that I would disconnect if there was nothing further to discuss, and he ended the call. I then called the shop, and they also gave me attitude, claiming that I was keeping a good man from his job and wasting his time. I asked if they could email me the photos so that we could proceed, but they hadn't sent them even 2 hours before I was supposed to leave for the day. I texted the customer to inform him, and he said he would call the shop. 5 minutes before I was supposed to leave, I called the shop again and didn't get an answer or the option to leave a message. I texted the customer to let him know that we hadn't received the photos yet and wouldn't be able to move forward with his claim until Monday. He began blaming me for working in a different time zone, stating that it wasn't fair that I worked 3 hours ahead of him. I clarified that I was only 1 hour ahead and that the shop had all day to send the photos. He then claimed that he would be fired on Monday because he didn't have a rental car and blamed me for it. In an effort to help, I offered to set him up with a discounted rental, but he claimed there were no rental companies in his area. Yet he still insisted that it was my fault he was losing his job. I apologized and suggested that he contact his State Department of Labor if his employer was so heartless as to fire him for missing a single workday. He continued to demand that I just pay the claim and accused me of needlessly holding it up to make his life difficult. I tried to explain the consequences of not following due diligence on a claim, but he didn't seem to understand. I guess I'll see what he has to say on Monday. My supervisor has been reading my notes and staying updated on the claim, and she will have a conversation with him about his behavior, especially since all the calls, including those displaying his bad behavior, were recorded. This is a single vehicle accident where the customer hit a large object on the road that he should have seen. I won't provide specific details to protect his privacy. He didn't file a police report and wanted to send me photos from the scene of the accident, which occurred at night. He became more irate when I explained that I needed a VIN photo from the sticker inside his driver's side door. The collision wasn't just between a car and an object. It was a clash of human emotions, expectations, and the rigid framework of policies and procedures. This experience, while challenging, has underscored the importance of patience, clear communication, and maintaining professional boundaries, even in the face of unwarranted hostility. It's a reminder that behind every claim is a story, often charged with stress and frustration. And as an adjuster, my role is not just to assess damages, but to navigate these human complexities with a balanced hand. Once an architect of betrayal and deceit, I found myself haunted by the shadows of a past where addiction and selfishness led me to ruin the life of someone I once loved. Years of recovery and a newfound stability had me convinced that a grand gesture of compensation could erase the scars of my former self. But as I sent a check to my ex, whose life I had once upended, I was unprepared for the whirlwind of emotions and consequences it would unleash. Here's how it all went down. So firstly, using an ALT here because I really was an asshole back in our relationship. We were young and in a long-distance relationship for 3 years. Then, we moved in together at the age of 20 in 2010. I had issues. I drank too much and gambled pretty much everything we earned. I was telling her that the bills were paid and hiding letters. Eventually, we faced eviction, and that was the end of our relationship. For the better. Unknown to her, I still had a card to her bank and siphoned off her next month's wages after the breakup. I was a complete asshole to her for the next few months before the police caught up with me, and I was arrested, charged, and luckily escaped prison. But I did have to pay her £3,000, which I did very slowly out of benefits, and it took me 3 years. In 2014, I entered rehab, and my life changed for the better. I have been in recovery since then and completely turned my life around. Now I am married with our own house and investment property, and things are going very well. That's enough backstory, but below is what I want to be judged on. 3 weeks ago, I met up with some old friends and found out that my ex-partner had been in a serious accident in 2017, which left her unable to use her dominant hand and in chronic pain. I did feel bad and did a little bit of Facebook stalking afterwards. I hadn't thought of her for years before this, and a flood of emotions about how I treated her ate away at me, and I felt very guilty. It became obvious that she's struggling financially, and I sat down and spoke with my wife. We decided that sending her a check to repay some of the damage I caused her back in 2010 was the right thing to do. I managed to get her address and sent her a letter apologizing for my actions from 2010 to 2012. I know this wouldn't make things right, but I hoped that a check for £10,000 would help. This was a massive chunk of savings for us and wasn't an easy decision. Today I received an abusive message from her saying she's very upset and that I must be absolutely crazy for thinking she would accept money from me. I genuinely thought we were doing something nice to help her and repay at least some of the damage I caused, but apparently some of my friends think that I'm a total jerk for it. I had sent a check for a huge amount of money to my ex, whom I had badly mistreated financially due to an addiction that I'm now in recovery for. She sent me a message telling me she wasn't interested in my money, and rightfully so. Last Monday, the 16th of December, I checked my online banking and saw that the check had been cashed, and I thought to myself, I'm happy she has the money and that was that. I wouldn't attempt any further contact. On Saturday just gone, I got a message on Facebook from her, a complete U-turn from her original message. She explained how when we were together, there were often broken promises about money and how money was coming soon. She thought immediately upon receiving the check that it would bounce when she paid it into the bank, and she was very shocked when it actually cleared. She still waited another week before she believed it was real. We've ended up talking a lot about our relationship, how it ended, the broken promises, and my mistakes. But we also reminisced on some of the good times we had together. We're never going to be close friends, but she seems to have accepted my apology for my actions way back when. She told me about her current financial situation and how much the money I repaid her will improve her current quality of life. Although realizing that I was TA didn't cause me to take any different actions, I just wanted to update the situation. Although I'm still TA for how I treated her during my relationship with her, I'd like to think I'm not TA for my actions in my previous post now. Although realizing that I was the jerk didn't cause me to take any different actions, I just wanted to update the situation. While I still acknowledge that I was the jerk for how I treated her during my relationship with her, I'd like to believe that I'm not the jerk for my actions in my previous post now. The experience has been a sobering reminder that the path to making amends is fraught with unpredictability, and that the wounds of the past, especially those we inflict on others, don't always heal in the ways we expect or hope. This chapter, a blend of remorse, hope, and unexpected reconciliation, has not only offered a glimpse into the power of genuine contrition, but also underscored the importance of respecting the boundaries and perspectives of those we've wronged, even as we strive to right our old wrongs. As I stood amidst the whirlwind of wedding planning, little did I know that a battle was brewing, one that would test the bonds of family and the limits of patience. It all started with a simple choice between cheesecake and a traditional wedding cake, a decision that spiraled into a clash of wills with my mother, who had her own vision for my big day. Here's how it all went down. My fiancé and I are getting married this fall, and the cake has become a major source of disagreement with my mom. To summarize the situation, we initially wanted a dessert bar, or cheesecake, instead of a traditional cake. However, my mom insisted on having at least a small cake for us to cut. To compromise, we obtained quotes for both options. Just before putting down a deposit, my mom suddenly decided that it would be tacky to have a cake only for us and not for the guests. She insisted that we also get a sheet cake to serve to everyone. We were frustrated because she was the one who initially suggested the idea, so we reluctantly agreed to have tiered cheesecake and mini cheesecakes, which was our original preference. However, my mom has not let go of the issue for the past 6 months. She has now started pushing for a groom's cake, even though my fiancé does not want one. When I told her this, she dismissed his opinion, claiming that it's only a groom's cake in name, and not about what he wants. Despite me firmly saying no multiple times, she persisted. Now, just this week, I received a text from my mom saying that she had already paid for an order at the bakery. This surprised me because I never involved her in those communications. When I called the bakery to inquire, I discovered that my mom had added a multi-tiered groom's cake with different fillings, flowers, and the whole package. We still have the cheesecakes, but I'm worried they will look out of place next to what is essentially a wedding cake. So, my question is, what should I do now that I know this? My mom is unaware that I'm aware of her actions. I am furious and hurt. While it may seem like it's just a cake, the issue goes beyond that. She went behind my back and crossed multiple boundaries after I clearly told her no. Am I being unreasonable for not allowing her to have her traditional wedding cake? I am now married and had the best, most relaxing honeymoon with my husband without any interference from family. Even though it was too late to cancel the wedding due to deposits and contracts, we decided to proceed as planned. To clarify, my parents did pay for the wedding, although we repeatedly expressed that we did not expect or need their financial support. However, this does not excuse my mom's behavior. My parents acknowledged that it was our wedding, and we should do what we wanted. However, there was an exception when it came to the cake, despite her previous suggestion of having cheesecake, if that's what we wanted. My husband and I found it amusing to read everyone's suggestions on how to handle the cake situation. Initially, I was tempted to take the petty route and surprise my mom by changing the cake design to something she would find tacky and reflective of my husband's hobbies, like a groom's cake typically does. After taking some time to consider my options, I realized that seeking petty satisfaction would only damage my relationship with my mom, which had never had this dynamic before the wedding planning process. I understood that she was the one in the wrong and acting childishly. Despite being the actual child in this relationship, I wanted to be mature and handle the situation like an adult, if only to maintain my own moral high ground. I had a conversation with my parents, where I explained all the reasons why this situation, and others throughout the wedding planning process, was hurtful and completely inappropriate. As expected, it didn't go well. My mom sent me a series of texts that showed she couldn't take responsibility for her actions, or comprehend that I wasn't mad about her ruining my wedding by ordering a cake. Rather, I was upset that she went behind my back, knowing it would surprise and upset me on my wedding day. I tried multiple times to redirect the conversation to the actual issue, but with little success. The conversation ended with her apologizing for a cake, making my husband and me so upset. It was clear that this apology wasn't genuine nor addressing the main issue, even if she thought it was. She also agreed to move the groom's cake to a meal we had the day before the wedding, which I accepted. At that point, with only a week until the wedding, I couldn't handle the thought of continuing to address the issue on top of everything else I had to deal with. I decided to let it go and focus on enjoying my wedding as much as possible. I minimized my interactions with my mom on the day of the wedding, and our wedding party and coordinator did an excellent job acting as a buffer. While I have had some contact with her since then, it has significantly decreased as I needed some space. We will obviously need to have some difficult conversations in the future, but for now, I am choosing to prioritize spending time with my new husband and getting back into therapy. Weddings, man, they really bring out the craziness in people. Oh, and by the way, the cheesecakes were a huge hit. Reflecting on the whole wedding cake saga, it's almost comical how something as sweet as cake could stir up such a storm. In hindsight, the whole ordeal with my mom over the cake choice feels like a bizarre, over-the-top drama that you'd only expect to see in a sitcom. Despite the frustration and the unexpected twists, it taught me a lot about setting boundaries, the complexities of family dynamics, and, oddly enough, the importance of laughter in the face of absurdity. Plus, in the end, the cheesecakes were a smashing success, and that's a delicious victory in its own right. As I stood in my boss's office, heart pounding with anticipation, I was about to learn that the account I had been promised was now in the hands of my less experienced male coworker. This betrayal marked the beginning of a downward spiral, where my dedication and hard work were met with manipulation, disregard, and a challenge to my mental and physical health. Here's how it all went down. I've been working with my company on a specific account for over 2 years. In the past year, I've been leading a small team consisting of myself and one other employee on this account. Initially, we had a third team member, but they didn't work out, so I've been handling the workload of 2 people while also supervising my coworker. Recently, we received news that our company will no longer be handling this account. A couple of weeks ago, my boss took me aside and informed me that since this account was going away, I could choose between 2 other accounts to work on. As the senior employee, he appreciated my hard work over the past year and wanted to give me the first choice. One of the accounts offered was our company's largest business, providing exciting travel opportunities. My boss asked me to take the spring break week to consider my decision and let him know upon my return which account I would like to work on. I had already made up my mind to choose the larger account as I had prior experience with it and saw it as an opportunity for career advancement. Today, when I met with my boss to communicate my decision, he informed me that he had given the large account to my male coworker, whom I was supervising, and assigned me the leftover account. Furthermore, my male coworker would be traveling to cover an event that we had previously discussed me attending. I received no explanation, and my boss seemed to act as if he was delivering good news. I was taken aback and unable to respond. I am a self-aware individual who is always striving to improve. If I had done something wrong that warranted losing this opportunity, I would be the first to admit it. However, the more I think about it, the more confused I become. I successfully led my team through a challenging period, consistently meeting deadlines and working diligently. A few months ago, my boss even presented me with an award. Additionally, my boss recently praised my work by showcasing it to the entire company. While my male coworker is a nice person, he tends to do the bare minimum and requires a lot of guidance. In the past, when I asked him for assistance, I ended up doing the work myself because he needed extensive handholding. Last week, while I was on vacation, he texted me every day, asking for files and seeking answers to questions he could have resolved independently. I have frequently stepped up to take on last-minute projects because he easily gets stressed and struggles with multitasking. I'm not using this situation to attribute my negative experience solely to gender inequality. This is the first time I've encountered such a situation, and it is disheartening. It feels beyond my control and does not align with the facts. Moving forward, how should I address this issue? I doubt that my boss would provide an honest answer if I were to ask him directly. Nevertheless, this situation has greatly affected my perception of the company, and I feel taken advantage of. Additional information. I am a mother and unable to attend all the after-work social events, whereas my male coworker can. It is worth noting that my boss and coworker are friends and spend time together outside of work. Additionally, as a mother, I occasionally need to work from home when my child is sick. On the other hand, my coworker, being single without any children, is consistently present in the office. Could these factors be influencing the situation? Is it something about me? I had a meeting with my boss to update him on how the situation was handled and what was discussed. I started the conversation by reminding him of our previous meeting before my vacation. During that meeting, he offered me a choice between 2 accounts and told me to take my week off to think about it. He said we would discuss it when I returned. I expressed my surprise and disappointment when I found out that the larger account I was offered was given to a coworker, CW, who has less seniority than me. My intention was to seek clarity on the situation and understand why that decision was made. I wanted to move forward without any negative feelings or the belief that I had done something to lose this opportunity. However, my boss immediately acted as if he didn't remember the conversation where he offered me the choice. I had a strong feeling he would try to deny it, but I stood my ground and insisted that the conversation did happen. I am not a liar, and he knows that. He then downplayed the significance of giving the account to CW and justified it by saying that CW was chosen to travel for a big event in May, which was related to that account. I questioned why CW was chosen for that opportunity, and my boss became flustered. He stumbled over his words and finally said, "Well, because CW has experience covering live events." This excuse is ridiculous because I also have experience in that area, and in fact, more experience than CW. After he said it, he immediately regretted it because of my serious expression. He then asked me, "Do you also have experience with live events?" He knows the answer unless he has ignored every conversation we've had. Even if he couldn't remember, he could deduce this from my work history and my resume. But he pretends not to know. So I simply responded with, yes, I have extensive experience. He replied, well, I didn't know that. He did know it. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that he genuinely has amnesia and can't remember. Why didn't he ask if anyone else had experience? It just feels like a weak excuse. I asked him if CW wanted this account, and he said CW never asked for it, but was excited about the travel opportunity. So it seems that CW doesn't even care about having the account, they just want to travel. Regardless, my boss tried to appease me and keep me on the team by giving me a lot of empty words. He kept complimenting me on being an amazing employee and expressing his appreciation for my hard work. He repeatedly assured me that I had done nothing wrong during my time here. I also brought up the social aspect and how it can be challenging for me, and he once again emphasized that the company values the work I produce more than socializing. After the meeting, I learned that all the men on our team are going to the event. I'm not pointing this out to imply sexism, but rather because my boss is one of only 3 men on the team. So it's evident that his preference is to travel with other men. I understand that. I don't want to travel with a group of men either. However, the fact that he thought it was acceptable to take away an entire account that he promised me solely because he prefers to travel with other men is a joke. Also, about 20 minutes after our meeting, I walked in on my boss and CW having a private conversation in the hallway. It seemed to end abruptly when they noticed me. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but what would you all think of that? If you can't tell from the tone of this update, I'm done. Sure, my boss's response could have been worse. He could have said mean things or told me I suck, but it made me realize that I am not valued or even considered by this company. They used me to handle an extremely difficult account, drained me, and now that the account no longer needs our help, it seems they no longer need me either. Moving forward, I will no longer assist my male coworker, and I am actively looking for new opportunities at a place that will appreciate my work ethic and talents. I acknowledge that I made mistakes throughout this whole process and have learned a hard lesson. However, these corporate games are not fair or acceptable for everyone. It's sad to think about how many of these companies lose hard-working, loyal employees because they can't participate in these silly social games. I'm going to try not to let this anger ruin the rest of my day, but it will be difficult. Wish me luck, and thank you for all the helpful advice I received here. I don't know how else to proceed other than to continue searching for jobs until I find something new and can leave this place. In the meantime, I will do the bare minimum and nothing more. After confronting my boss about a coworker receiving an account that was promised to me, my boss gave me 2 different accounts. Later discovered that one was taken from a coworker without her knowledge until the day I took over. Initially, things were good and I enjoyed the change. However, issues started to arise again shortly after. My boss became extremely micromanaging, overseeing every aspect of my work. I was partnered with a copywriter who my boss doesn't get along with, resulting in constant fighting. I was caught in the middle, having to mediate and relay messages between them because they refused to communicate. I was overwhelmed with an excessive workload. When I expressed this, my boss would blame my copywriting partner, whom he dislikes for some reason, and start yelling at him, causing more issues. As a result, I stopped informing my boss when I was overworked. The workload became so overwhelming that I was being asked to make work changes while I was out sick with COVID. I was being held responsible for mistakes made by higher-ups, causing problems when I didn't respond while I was sick. I was constantly contacted by work, even when I was off. I had no personal life and would come home exhausted every night. This situation led to severe burnout, and one day I started experiencing extreme panic attacks when going into work. It became so bad that I called in sick and went to see my doctor. I cried and told her I couldn't continue. I felt completely broken. She signed me off work for 6 weeks of medical leave. When I informed my boss about taking leave, without disclosing the reason, he reacted poorly. He accused me of blindsiding him with my medical leave and threatened to hire someone to replace me during my absence for just 6 weeks. He also told my coworkers about my leave before I had a chance to, which angered them as they felt blindsided. Despite the initial difficulty, I took the leave because I was too burned out to care about my company's reaction. For the first 2 weeks, I felt completely shattered. It didn't help that my former male coworker, who took over the account I was promised, messaged me during my medical leave with work-related questions about an account we no longer worked on. I chose not to respond. During my 4 weeks of leave, I made significant progress in improving my physical and mental health. I started exercising, lost 13 pounds, mainly due to stress-induced lack of appetite, began new medication, and increased my therapy sessions. I also started seeing a psych nurse practitioner for treatment of my ADHD symptoms, which have caused me many difficulties. I feel like a completely different person now. Additionally, my hair stopped falling out, confirming that it was indeed stress-related. However, I am now facing anxiety about returning to work in 2 weeks. My psych nurse practitioner believes it may be too soon, but since she didn't fill out my original leave paperwork, my GP did, I'm unsure if she can provide the necessary documentation to extend my leave. I'm hesitant to ask my GP for an extension because it would require her to fill out another extensive packet from my company, and she is a busy doctor. My psych nurse practitioner suggested that if I do return to work, I should work from home 3 days a week and only be in the office for 2. This recommendation takes into account not only the difficulties I've faced at work, but also my severe ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and suspected autism, all of which have gone untreated until now. While my new medication is beginning to help, the work environment adds to my overwhelm and worsens the toxicity I experience from my boss. There is a lengthy accommodation process at work that could take several months to complete. During my time off, I have been searching for a new job. I was too burned out to consider other opportunities while working, but unfortunately, not many companies are hiring at the end of the year, and I haven't had any success in finding something new during this break. So, this is my current situation. It's a complete mess. This company has had a detrimental impact on my mental and physical health. However, I feel trapped. As a single mom, I am responsible for my son's insurance and the majority of his expenses. I can't simply quit my job without having something else lined up. At the same time, I'm terrified of the negative effects returning to work will have on my well-being. I know that my health should be a priority over any job, but when you rely on wages and have limited savings, you feel like you don't have a choice. I wish I had a more positive update, but perhaps others can learn from my mistakes. I was overly accommodating and invested too much of my energy into this job, thanks to my ADHD tendencies. As a result, I was taken advantage of and pushed to the point of exhaustion. When I asked for help, I was dismissed. So if anyone has any advice on what I should do now, please feel free to share. I'm desperate at this point to avoid going back. Hearing this story, I'm struck by the stark reminder of how challenging and unfair the workplace can be, especially when merit and hard work are overshadowed by favoritism and hidden biases. It's disheartening to see such a dedicated and capable individual being undervalued and pushed to their limits. This narrative serves as a crucial wake-up call about the importance of recognizing one's worth and the need for systemic changes in corporate cultures to ensure fairness and respect for all employees. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now, or you're definitely the jerk.